Okay, just how bad can a Camry be? See, the Camry is often regarded as one of the most reliable vehicles of all time, but this one's a bit different. This is the cheapest Camry we could find anywhere, and it's arguably one of the worst registered examples out there. And we want to know, like, when a Camry gets this bad, what actually goes wrong with it? And should you ever seriously consider buying one? Let's find out. Now, the Camry generation that we're going to be focusing on in this video is the 1997 to 2002 XV20, which was available as a sedan or a wagon with a 4 or 6 cylinder engine and as an automatic or a manual. Now, all of these Camrys in Australia are front wheel drive only, but there were all wheel drive models available in some international markets. Also, speaking of variants, depending on the year model and if it's a sedan or a wagon, before the midlife update, you'll generally have 3 specs to choose from. But there was a whole other Camry that wasn't really a Camry, but it kind of is a Camry, and that's called the Vienta. The Vienta existed from 1997 to 2000 and was the fancy schmancy V6. It was available as a sedan or a wagon in 2 trim specs. Now, after the midlife update in September 2000, the Vienta was dropped and the Camry range increased to 5 variants. And like most updates, there was a subtle facelift, some mechanical changes, and the levels of equipment increased. Now, that all may seem very confusing, and fair enough because it is, but to make sense of all that and to find out all the specific details and basically get your hands on the ultimate used Camry buyer's guide, jump on ReDriven.com and check out our awesome and completely free ReDriven cheat sheets. Honestly, it'll answer pretty much all the questions that you're going to have on these things. Now guys, here's a fun fact. All of the Australian Camrys and Vientas were made here in Australia. In fact, loads of their design and development work was done here as well. So if you want a true blue Aussie car, buy a Toyota. Also, our crazy mates over in New Zealand, they made 10 limited edition TS supercharged Camrys. Yeah, like a supercharged V6 Camry. It kind of maybe was the inspiration for other things to come, like the TRD Orion. Now guys, this Camry is incredibly special, not just because it was the cheapest one we could find, and it has clearly had a hell of a life, but this car is going to be transformed into a rally car, and not just any rally car, a Shitbox Rally car. See, we're sponsoring the Nut Truckers team for the Australian Shitbox Rally to raise money for the Cancer Council, and we need your help. We need to raise money for the Cancer Council, so click the link down below and please donate whatever you can. $1, $10, $3.4 million, whatever you can spare. Honestly, all the money goes to the Cancer Council. It's a fantastic cause, and keep updated on ReDriven on the transformation of this thing and the rally. Okay, interior-wise, let me just start by saying this thing has had such an immense life. I don't really want to touch anything in here without gloves on, because whatever this is, I feel like needs a hospital visit to work out what this is. This might be the start of something very serious. Now, design-wise, I'm going to go as far as saying that this is becoming almost quite period correct. Like a few years ago, this wouldn't have been cool at all. It was just an old Camry, but now it's kind of retro cool. Now, as far as seat comfort goes, really comfortable. Like, the seats are still sort of supportive. Like, there's no rattles, no weird squeaks, nothing going on there, which is lovely. Wear and tear, yeah, there's some serious wear and tear going on. As you can see, some of the door card fabric is falling apart. The roof's kind of becoming like an upside down parachute a little bit. The steering wheel, I don't even want to touch it. It looks like it's literally biodegrading. Like, this is some horrific kind of skin condition. There's all sorts of weird stains everywhere. It smells interesting. You've got kind of, this is a bit broken as well, this little lid for the container here. There's a liquid down there. I'm not sure what that liquid even is. Don't really want to touch that. It's definitely seen better days. In saying that, but everything that you use, like the indicator stalks, all these buttons, the air conditioning, everything you use still feels really solid. It's great. Now, as far as practicality up front goes, pretty good. You've got an excellent sized glove box here. You've got there we go. You've got a spot for your CDs here. A CD is a compact disc. It's like a round, shiny thing that music is on. It's really hard to explain what that is. There's also an ashtray and a cigarette lighter. Gross. Disgusting. What are they even thinking? Now, amazingly, this car was designed and made well and truly before the iPhone ever came out, but there's a spot that perfectly fits an iPhone right there. Plus, it's carpeted, so when you put it screen down, it almost kind of cleans your phone, which is fantastic. There's a spot for coins here. You used to use coins before you used like Apple Pay. Again, really hard to explain. 2 cup holders here, little storage cubby hole here, And it does have door bins, but they're so thin, I don't know what you're going to fit in there. Maybe a map. A map's almost like GPS, it's like Google Maps, but in paper form. Again, really hard to explain. Okay, in the back seat, I'm exactly 14 centimetres taller than Hollywood acting legend Cameron Diaz. This is in my driving position, and it's really comfortable. The seats are super comfy, heaps of knee room, heaps of leg room, feels nice and spacious. But in saying that, I am actually feeling very uncomfortable because I don't know what this stain is. It's huge and gross, and I hate to say it, it kind of looks like a blood stain. There's no bullet holes in the car, but Also, like the door cards on the front doors, if you look closely, you'll see that just there's a little bit of thread coming loose up here, so that might need fixing. Besides that, oh yeah, you also got the parachute style roof lining again back here. And it's just gross. Honestly, it's gross. I want to get out of the back seat. Yuck. And as far as practicality in the back seat, let's do this fast. I want to get out. Map pockets. That's it. Now, in terms of boot space, even with the giant LPG tank in the back, this thing still has a pretty decent amount of space. Now guys, in terms of tech and features, we're talking about a Camry from the late 90s and early 2000s. So you can forget anything like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or really any kind of modern technology. Actually, to put into perspective how old this car is, when this car was wrapped up was the same year that Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake broke up. I know that was a heartbreaking period, but the good news is there were plenty of other Camry generations to come, so that hopefully eases the pain. Anyway, the earliest and base models come with a terrible sounding 4-speaker stereo with a radio and a cassette player, central locking, a tilt adjustable steering wheel, and an immobiliser, which may sound funny, but funnily enough, because of sort of how under the radar these cars are, they were a bit of a target for thieves back in the day, so the immobiliser is a handy thing to have. But if you opt for a more recent or higher spec example, you'll get an ever so slightly better sounding 6-speaker stereo with a CD player, climate control, velour or plush knit seat fabric, leather wrapped steering wheel, gear stick and handbrake lever, and a bunch of fancy exterior trim pieces too. Now guys, if you do want Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, parking sensors, a reversing camera, all that sort of stuff, it can all easily be fitted with aftermarket gear. But if you do need to know what specific items these things have across the generations and across the variants, ReDriven.com, check out the cheat sheet. It's actually a good read. It's pretty funny reading what these things have as standard when new. Now safety-wise, when these were tested, they received a 3-star rating, which ANCAP consider now not only a very dangerous car, but it's kind of concocting ways to hurt you. But look, to take you through exactly what safety features this car has, we're going to cut to Kurt and Matt, who are the two guys that are taking this exact car across the Australian desert, which just happens to be one of the most dangerous places in the world.
Due to work commitments, Matt was unable to attend the shoot. It will be seamlessly added into the video using cutting-edge technology by our editor.
So, keeping us safe in the Shitbox Rally this year, 4 brakes, 4 tyres, a couple of seat belts and some airbags, and some pretty below average driving skills.
I tell you what, Kurt, you've really hit the nail on the head there. Gonna be hot in the desert. Am I right?
Yeah, so what's it like to drive? Well, look, it's no secret that, the driving experience of a Toyota Camry isn't exactly the most exciting aspect of it. So to make this a bit more interesting, let's break it down into chapters. Power stuff. So this particular Camry is packing the fire-breathing 3-litre V6, and after 24 years and over 290,000 kilometres, it's fantastic. Like, the engine's nice and smooth, it's quiet, good amount of power delivery is nice and linear. I'm so impressed. Like, it's old, but it's great. Like, even when you floor it, like, it shifts nice and smoothly, and you kind of like lethargically move towards the future. Look, it's not a fast car at all, but it's also not embarrassingly slow. It's more impressive that it's still going more than how fast it's going. Look, for what this car is supposed to do, this engine provides the goods just fine. Handling stuff. Now guys, this is the section of the video that many other YouTube channels and car journalists start talking about steering nuance and mid-corner balance on the limit and lift-off oversteer. Guys, it's a 20-year-old Camry. If you're interested in any of that sort of stuff, this is not the car for you. So far, when you turn this, like the car, it goes around the corner, and if you do this and going too fast, then it doesn't go around the corner anymore. Braking stuff. In terms of braking, if you push this pedal, the car stops. Noisy stuff. Okay, you know what? Like, again, 24 years old, over 290,000 kilometres. There's no rattles. There's no squeaks. There's a slight knock from the rear struts. I think the rear struts have had it But besides that, the noisiest thing in here are the voices in my head. I can't believe how silent it is in here, even on the roughest roads. It's brilliant.
Smell stuff.
So today I'm wearing Versace's Iao Freaci, and it's a masculine smell, yet it's also warm with like hints of musk and maybe like just a touch of kind of maple wood. It's perfect for today's introspective man.
Other stuff.
Okay, so overall, what's it like to drive? Imagine what a 24-year-old Camry with well over 290,000 kilometres on it would be like to drive. It's better than that. Look, I've been driving this thing around for the last couple of weeks, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's honestly bloody nice to drive. But let's see if it's still nice to drive after it's been abused in the Aussie outback. We'll keep you updated. Now, you know how much we paid for this beast of a car? It was under $1,000. And yes, that may seem like a bargain. And when you're looking at these things on the classifieds, they do seem to be incredibly affordable. But we haven't got into what goes wrong with them yet, and you do need a budget for that. And that's one of the issues with cars in this budget. It's one thing to be able to buy the car, but you've also got to be able to afford to maintain and possibly repair it as well. And if you're looking at these in dealerships, be really careful of any used car warranties that the dealerships may offer, because quite often those things aren't worth the paper they're written on. Do your homework. Actually, you know what? Before you even consider buying one of these, or really any car in this budget, please watch our Ultimate Used Car Buyer's Guide video first. It'll take you through everything you need to know. It'll make the entire process so much easier. Watch that because it could save you thousands. Okay, so what goes wrong with these things? Let's start with the exterior. On this particular car, if you look really closely, it's hard to see, but just there, you can see that some of the clear coat and the paint is just starting to degrade a little bit. Now, this can happen commonly on Camrys that are constantly parked outside, or they're parked near salt water, or they've never ever been washed or cared for. But the good news is Camrys that have been garaged, they have been washed kind of regularly, like once every 2 or 3 years, as you'll see in the classifieds, their paint seems to last forever. There are some reports that the tail lights and reverse lights can stop working because the actual wiring harness that operates them is kind of in the hinge joint, and it can rub against that, and over time it just wears out. And also, this can get so bad that the ECU freaks out and stops the car being selected out of park. In saying that, it's an incredibly rare occurrence. Now, problems inside, there are many reports, just like this one, of like some of these hinges and latches just getting loose and breaking, and yeah, this happens. Also, this whole biodegrading of the steering wheel, yeah, that's a common fault as well. Also, with the air conditioning or the HVAC system, there are some reports that certain blower speeds can get pretty grumpy and start making banging noises or just fail completely. It's normally the blower resistor motor having an issue, but that's pretty easily resolved. Now, before we tell you mechanically what goes wrong with this generation of Camry, we have to say a massive, massive thank you to Closters in Newcastle for hooking us up with this car. And also to everyone in the Toyota and the Camry communities, like owners groups and forums. Thank you so much for helping us research this video, because without you guys, we couldn't make these videos. Now, mechanically, what goes wrong with this generation of Camry? I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic. Jim is.
I'm going to group the 2.2 litre 4-cylinder and the 3 litre V6 together here because they both pretty much have the same quirks and features. Now, even though these were made in a time when Toyota was really at its peak reliability, at this age they're all going to need a bit of TLC. Now, oil leaks are going to be what you see first, primarily from the valve covers, they all leak. And also from the camshaft seal and the crankshaft seal, and the power steering pumps leak oil too. Now, on the oil leaking from the cam and crankshaft seals, that will be leaking onto the timing belt. The timing belt in these are due every 150,000 Ks, but if the oil is leaking from those seals onto the belt, you're going to have to do it straight away. The water pump too, it's driven off that cam belt, and it's good practice to do that while you're in there. Now, at this age, they're all going to burn a bit of oil, and that's not going to stop the car. If you keep it topped up between services, that's going to be fine, but it is going to foul the spark plugs, and that's not a huge drama in the 4-cylinders, but in the V6, the back 3 spark plugs in the back bank are really quite difficult to get at. And also the back valve cover, which is leaking by the way, it's also pretty hard to get at. Now, back in the days when these were made, they still actually made engine parts out of metal, if you can even believe that. But the radiator in these, well, it is made of plastic. And if it has turned brown with age instead of black, well, it's cactus and it's going to burst, so you really should keep an eye out for that. Other than that, it's just age-related things that applies to all cars. All of the hoses, the coolant hoses, the fuel lines, the hydraulic brake hoses, you should check all of them for signs of cracking and swelling. The transmissions in these are pretty reliable, but they really do need servicing. So if you're looking at one, check the oil on the dipstick. If it's brown, not red, and if it smells a bit burnt, well, it definitely needs a transmission service. But if it still drives okay and the shifts are smooth, well, chances are it's going to be okay. It's just going to need a service. And as far as the suspension and steering goes, well, it's the same with any car of this age and usually high mileage. The struts are all probably going to be worn out, and just have a good look at all the suspension bushes too.
Okay, so should you buy one? Well, look at it this way. This is the exact car that we have chosen for two of our best mates to attempt a cross-desert rally to raise money for the Cancer Council. So surely, if it's good enough for an adventure like that, surely this generation of Camry is plenty good enough for whatever you have planned for it. The Camry's popularity has never been forged through performance or a sexy image or a luxury experience. The Camry has sold in millions because it's a no-nonsense, rugged, reliable and dependable car. And if you're on the tightest of budgets, this generation Camry is simply the one to get. But remember, it's not all that safe. Make sure you have a pre-purchase inspection carried out before you buy one, and have some cash left over to maintain it as best you can. But when the absolute worst example is as good as this, what a bloody great car. Now again guys, the entire point of this car is to raise money for the Cancer Council, so please click on the link down there and give as much as you possibly can, and we'll keep you updated on how it goes through the rally. See you next time. Not only because it was now guys, if you do want Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, cool, and on some, sorry, go again. Oh jeez, here we go, good, yeah? And in some red, okay, good, yeah? Yep. And also, this can get so bad that also there are some reports that with the air conditioning or the HVAC system, that certain fan speeds can get pretty grumpy and make some pretty horrible noises.